And we are live from New York, Tuesday night, not Saturday night. And I want to welcome everybody to our regular Tuesday night hangout for the Bold team. And we will start out tonight by talking about what the hell does personal development have to do with business? Huh? I'm going to present it from a little different angle and not talk so much about, yeah, you have to have a good self-image in order to make a lot of money, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to go from a very foundational point of view and almost historical point of view, not hysterical, historical point of view as to how my view of how this came about, or one person who brought it into fruition anyway. And yes, I'm going to introduce the people. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that right now. So let me start by introducing and bringing out so they can introduce themselves. Michelle, start at that end, if you would.
You can introduce me. That's okay.
Oh, you do it. You know you better than me.
Hi, I'm Michelle Eves with MarketMichelleInsights.com, and I am an affiliate marketer at the moment. Live in Mississippi, where it's still nice and warm, thank God. And I have fought this idea of personal development and business for 2 years before I finally accepted it. So this is going to be a good topic, and I love that it's in line with the What the Hell series. So thanks, Carol.
Thank you. And I'll just throw in that Michelle is just back from a Monkees concert and got to go to New Orleans while she was there. So next in line, I have Miss Kelly Tiedemann.
Hi all, I'm Kelly Tiedemann from Western Massachusetts. I am a longtime bookkeeper and accountant and doing some small business development and consulting. And I'm glad to be here tonight with the Bold team as we explore personal development and entrepreneurship and how all of these amazing things work together and challenge me and challenge people I know, and I'm just looking forward to it. So thanks, guys.
Well, thank you, Kelly. And next to Kelly and my line on the bottom here, I have Jamie. Would you be good enough to come out and introduce yourself, please?
I thought for sure Michelle was going to say, like, hey, it's Michelle. You should have. Michelle, I'm going to give you another opportunity. After me, just hop back out and do it again. We're going to do a redo because you're also, like myself, an internet mogul. All right? We're all in training. Don't be shy about it. All right? Jamie Donnelly, New Jersey. I'm glad to be here as always. I love the What the Hell series. It is my favorite series. Anything that says like a curse or hell or whatever really gets me, it gets my attention. So personal development and cursing and also these beautiful people and business, it's going to be a fun time. Right, Carol? Or no, Michelle, go ahead.
Michelle, did you want to come out again and musically reintroduce yourself?
Nobody wants me to sing, trust me. If you have watched that intro, Welcome to the Monkey, or the Daydream Believer part, that was unfortunately me singing, so nobody wants to hear that again.
All right. We'll take that under advisement. And last and certainly not least is Ellie.
Hi, Ellie Walsh, upstate New York, the other end of the house from Carol. I did watch that Daydream Believer. Michelle, I didn't know it was you singing, and I thought you were pretty brave. Okay, so that's cool. I love the Monkees. I grew up with them, so very cool. And I'm smiling about all of this because this morning we were on a call. We were talking in essence about personal development. We did a live a little while ago. We were talking about personal development, and here we are talking about personal development. All of these were about business. They were all about business. So in essence, they were all business calls and business videos, and we were talking about personal development. So let's go to it. Let's do it.
All right, let's go. Thank you, Ellie. My name is Carol Mikowski, and I am, as Ellie said, at the other end of the house from Ellie. And I'm also an online marketer. So from that, we will take it from here. Now, what I want to hopefully be able to do is to allow people to recognize and make the best use of the connection between personal development and business, and see how it melds and comes together, where it fits in. Excuse me. So I'm basing this actually on Napoleon Hill. I love that guy, and he's dead. And I'm basing it on this book, The Law of Success, by Napoleon Hill. And he's well known for his book, Think and Grow Rich. I don't think he's as well known for this book, The Law of Success. That's the one that I favor, although I do like the Think and Grow Rich as well. Main thing here with Napoleon is think. Think and Grow Rich, Law of Success, a lot of it's talking about thoughts. Now, just by way of background, Napoleon was a journalist. He was born in a little one-room cabin in, I don't know if it was either Virginia or West Virginia. And his father apparently published a local paper, and he got into journalism through that. And one of his assignments as he grew into larger papers than that local one that his dad had was to interview Andrew Carnegie. And that interview took place in 1908. So I just want to get an historical context here. And from that interview with Andrew Carnegie, Mr. Carnegie commissioned him to develop a simple formula for success in business by interviewing as many other millionaires as he could at the time. Now, remember, millionaires back in those days, I mean, they were like billionaires today, if not more. So it took him over the next 20 years, he continued to interview people such as Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Alexander Graham Bell, the Woolworth guy, you know, et cetera, et cetera. He hit loads of them. And before the 20 years was up, he started to put together the information that he was gathering from these folks. And he developed an educational plan, which was in 16 different booklets. And this became a correspondence course with folks. And that's how he got it out there to the public. Because again, we have to take a look at the time. I mean, there was no internet, there was no television. Radio just began to come in the 20s and didn't come into its own really, at least until the late 20s, if not more. There were only magazines, mail, snail mail, local newspapers, and the spoken word. And that's how he got it out, through correspondence courses, as I just mentioned, and through the spoken word. And if you're aware of those times at all, people went around and did lectures a lot. And again, when you think, he hit almost all of the major cities in the United States. If you think of what was going on in those times, in order to get around, you had two major sources of transport, well, three, I guess: horseback, train, and car. And again, by car, there were no highways or anything. There were just, you know, little roads, rural roads. So it wasn't easy for him to get this word out, and that's my point. And he did a fantastic job, you know, based on the situation at the time. Finally, in 1928, all those 16 individual booklets that he had were brought together under one, the book that I just showed you, The Law of Success. So let me get into what he talked about and how we can draw a connection between personal development and business. The very beginning of the book, he talked about, well, what we would consider today personal development and mindset. And I'm always amazed at how far back what we talk about today, we sometimes tend to think it's, oh my God, you know, I'm just learning this. This is new stuff. No, went way back. I mean, Ellie can quote the Bible and bring it back to Jesus saying stuff about this. But for Napoleon, he was even talking about an infinite intelligence that existed in the air and the ethos, and how we could connect with that if we were able to raise our vibration high enough. And he did talk about vibration. And I think that was based on his interview with Alexander Graham Bell. That's how he got into, and that's how he was able to explain vibrations to people. Now, this is the part that really hooked me when I first got into this book. And he started talking about masterminds. Now, today we talk about masterminds a lot in business. And we talk about meetings, and usually it's where somebody, you know, gives a presentation, and perhaps other people join in a discussion. His idea of a mastermind and the way that these millionaires were using mastermind was a little bit different. There were some rules set up. First of all, it was usually a small group somewhere. The ideal size was somewhere around 6-8 people, something like that. And they all had to be like-minded. No negativity was allowed. And preferably they were from had different talents that were coming together. And through discussion and exchange of ideas, and funny, Ellie and I were talking about this also, collaboration versus isolation. So they certainly collaborated. They were able to become so creative and come up with new ideas and implement them in their businesses. And like the mastermind, as Napoleon puts it out, was sort of the groundwork for their thinking in their businesses. And we certainly use masterminds today. We do, this group does ourselves. I suppose in a sense it's the same way. So yeah, it's cool. And we do put our minds together and come out with different ideas that we haven't thought of before. So there's certainly an element of creativity that comes into it. Now, let me just go over briefly, and then I'll open it up for discussion. Some of the things that Napoleon talked about. And again, it's going to sound familiar. Yet, to my way of thinking, he had even more than what we talk about today, or at least what I have heard in this business field. First thing he says is you need a definite, what he called a definite chief aim. He loved that word, definite. And we refer to it as a vision or a goal. Very definite, very well defined, okay? So that's number one. Number two, self-confidence. Now we talk about courage. He spoke about self-confidence in terms of overcoming fear. We talk about how fear holds us back and limits us, and we need to get out of our comfort zone, et cetera, et cetera. And Napoleon talked about self-confidence because it's based on definite knowledge, which puts us over that hump of fear if we have the knowledge. The third one is initiative and leadership. And he says we can gravitate to the top of our game by utilizing our initiative and developing it. And it helps us to develop our leadership skills at the same time and flexes our leadership muscles. So that's the third one. The fourth little booklet that he created and chapter in the book that he talks about is imagination. Now, in working toward our definite chief aim that he had as his first premise, he's saying use your imagination. That leads into planning because it takes us to our definite chief aim, our vision, our goal. And we can use old ideas, certainly, refurbish them and make them into new uses. And we develop a gold mine of knowledge that way. Now, I mean, we do that with some of the content that we put out. I'm using the wrong word. It's not refurbish. I can't think of the word that I want, but you know what I'm saying. Repurpose. We repurpose, for example, a blog, and then we put a video into it, and then maybe we'll shorten it and put it out on a Facebook post or something. So, old ideas, turning them into new ideas. The fifth thing he talks about is action. Now, how many times have you heard that? And whatever we learn is no good unless we're going to take some action. So he's saying the same thing, that knowledge in and of itself is no good. Well, it's not no good, but it's not useful to us unless we put some action to it, and first of all have a plan, and then take some action based on that plan. So through the action, in today's world, we talk about teaching and implementing, and doing our daily income-producing activities. So that's our version of action. Sixth point he makes is enthusiasm, and he uses that he describes that, as an attraction factor. So he says that the enthusiasm attracts other people to you and allows you to influence others into a state of cooperation with you. Interesting. We talked today about attraction marketing. Seventh point is self-control. And he calls this the balance wheel. He says to avoid excesses, such as excessive spending, and he refers to how many people he had seen who developed tremendous wealth and blew it all because they didn't manage their money appropriately. He talks about not having affairs with people. He gets into the sexual realm there. And he talks about, of course, not excessive drinking or drugging or etc., that sort of thing, because it allows us to lose control of ourselves, and therefore we lose control of our businesses. That was his way of thinking. Number 8 is the habit of performing more service than what we're paid for. Now think of that. We talk about over-delivering. Same idea, right? And he calls that, instead of the law of diminishing returns, he calls it the law of increasing returns, by performing more than what you're getting paid for. And he gave many examples of people who went above and beyond at work, and their work was therefore acknowledged and noticed by administrators, who then rewarded the people who were doing that. And the 9th one he talks about is a pleasing personality. And that goes hand in hand with the enthusiasm that he spoke about before. And he says, again, a pleasing personality makes us attractive. And by being pleasing, we're adaptable, we're influential. So again, that kind of goes hand in hand with attraction marketing. And the 10th point is accurate thought. Now, he talks about a new realm of thinking, which is a foundation for planning. So remember, number 1 was definite chief aim, and now he's going to talk about planning. And before that, he also mentioned the action, putting the plans into action. And he says this is a different realm of thinking because it's a habit, it's a skill of differentiating fact information that's floating around. I mean, we hear all kinds of things in the news and in teachings and whatever throughout the course of life every day. And it's not all fact. Some of it's just stuff that people are talking about. So he says it's very important to separate out the fact from the information, and then to further differentiate by separating out the important from the unimportant facts upon which we would build our work plan. So again, he's getting very definite about the plan. 11, concentration. Now, I think that's the same type thing we talk about in terms of focus. He says, in our teachings, we're taught to focus on one thing, to master it, before we go off on something else. And it helps us to avoid that shiny object syndrome, which is so easy to get sucked into. So we talk about focus. He talked about concentration. And he also said to take the big goal, the big vision that we have, and chunk it down into smaller goals. And then focus on those smaller ones and complete them. Complete each small goal so that we can move along towards the large goal. Now, he talks about tolerance, and I found that kind of interesting. I'm not going to get into a lot of it, but if you think of it in terms of our political realm today, he says getting into arguments with people over beliefs that we have and prejudices about certain things, about certain people, it ends up closing our door to reason when we get into arguments over such things. And he says it's actually foolishness to do that. And he says it's foolish because it makes enemies and destroys opportunities. See, so he incorporates a whole lot of things into business, I think more than what we sometimes think about. And he says intolerance fills the mind with doubt and mistrust. And to be successful at business, we don't want to engage in doubt. So number 13 is failure. The failure to differentiate between failure and temporary defeats. So he really didn't believe in failure either. You know how we talk about just having temporary setbacks and what have you, and that's exactly what he said. He said, just think of them in terms of temporary defeats and actually look at them as opportunities for learning. And I'm going to quote Ellie here, who says, there are no mistakes, only opportunities. So I don't know whether she picked that up from Napoleon somehow. I think not. Number 14, we're almost at the end here, is cooperation. And again, I can refer back to collaboration versus isolation. And he relates that to teamwork, which we certainly use today. And again, the mastermind that I spoke of earlier. The 15th is the habit of saving. And again, this kind of relates back to his avoiding excesses, because he said living beyond our means can only, or it's possible to lead to our own demise. Not a good habit to get into. And the final thing he talked about is the golden rule. Now, he says it's more than just do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And again, he goes into thought, thinking. He says, think of others as you would have them think of you. And this way he brings together thoughts and actions. So do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Think of others as you would have them think of you. And he said that results in creativity, putting the two together. So basically, he's talking about not just working willy-nilly, being all over the place, not working in a vacuum, and instead developing characteristics based on mind and thought melded with action, which creates our business and our lives. So that's how I see bringing together both personal development and business. And that's how I see what he taught in the past, and how some of it relates, well, it all relates to what we're doing today. And, you know, we use different verbiage, and I think actually in some ways his plan was more comprehensive. So I'm going to open it up and see if there's anything that anybody else would like to add at this point. And actually, we're going to wrap up a little bit earlier today because we have something else we have to jump on at 9 o'clock. And it looks like we might be wrapping up right now. Nobody else has anything to say.
I gave them all a chance, all right? The hell with them now.
That's
So-
what we were waiting for. We were waiting for her because we know that she's got a lot to say.
No, I might not. We're not sure.
Mm.
That book, I remember reading that book, okay? First of all, just carrying that book, it's like 623 pages, something like that, right, Carol?
Yep.
It's crazy. It's like, oh, let me read the book. Put it down. Yeah, it was freaking amazing. And then Carol and I actually did a weekly hangout every week on one of the chapters. So that was pretty cool, you know. And I actually was not a Napoleon Hill person. I know, like, you're almost not supposed to say that in business, like, oh, you know. I read that book, Think and Grow Rich, years ago. And I mean, today I understand what happened, and it really poked me. Okay, it really poked my self-image, and that's what we were talking about earlier today was self-image. It really poked my self-image. And then I was like, this guy's an asshole. Okay, so, and you know, that defensiveness is that low self-esteem. Okay, that low self-image. I'll protect myself by saying, you know, this guy's an asshole. And I mean, obviously he knew what he was talking about. I think I read it again. I was never 100%. And this book actually is the book that I went, oh my God. Because if you really read this book, he talks so much about vibrations. You know, today if you talk about vibrations, there are those people that want to go, oh, you're into that woo-woo stuff. And I'm like, yeah. Well, so was he a lot of years ago, right? Huge, he talks about vibrations. You're actually a little amazed. And I mean, it's if you don't open your mind, if you don't change those patterns that you're running, you're not going to be successful. Sorry, it's as simple as that. What you're living right now is the mindset map you have going on in your head, and it's your self-image. Okay? You're living what your self-image will allow you to. And so he's talking about that, and he's giving all these different ways on how to change that. And my God, now we have so many different books to go and read, and to, you know, but people that want to, when you say, you know, like, well, if you tell them read a book like this, they might get a hernia, so you have to be careful. Okay, so I actually did the audio, and I did it, I think, at 1.5 times. The guy was talking too slow, so I made him talk like a New Yorker, and I was like, let me listen to this guy. But that is the real work. Everybody thinks, oh, it's the work about learning how to put this here in the form. You know what? You can go hire somebody at Fiverr to do that stuff for you. You really can for the majority of it. You don't even have to, you know, get into that. This is the work that actually makes that other work easier in the long run. Because when you change that self-image, you don't fight doing that other work anymore. Somebody today on our live was talking about procrastination. And that's just a defense for self-image. That's all procrastination is. Okay, I don't really believe I'm going to get this done, or I don't really believe that this is going to, there's something about it, okay? It's not gelling with your self-image. And so we procrastinate, you know. So to me, it's all about self-image. And you don't just get up one day and go, okay, changing my self-image now. I mean, maybe it works for you, okay? It freaking didn't work for me. It's been a long journey. And anybody but I don't say that in a bad way. It's been a very interesting and fruitful journey, okay? Because it's never ending. Because there's always more to reach. There's always more ways to expand. There's always more ways to learn. So I'm not complaining about that journey at all. I don't think you do this by just getting up the next day and saying my self-image will change. It's impossible. It's all about the experiences and the journeys that mold you and create new mindset maps for you to follow. That's all I actually have to say, Miss Jamie.
Well, I think this kind of melds right into then, as we were talking about earlier today, Ellie, Psycho-Cybernetics.
Right.
I mean, that's a great follow-up book. Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to say anything? Or?
What do you mean, Ellie? That you can't just wake up and change your, what, don't we Dr. Joe this place up or what? Like, what are we saying? Are you contradicting your own?
You don't just change in one day though. You did the meditation. Will you change the next day?
Yes, he told me, when you come out of this, you're going to be a different person. Your DNA.
Well, you are. All
change.
right, I agree.
I was a genius when I woke up from that. That's how I became an internet mogul. I was not an internet mogul until I came back from that. Look, Kelly's laughing. She was sitting right next to me. She saw it happen. Okay? Okay, so I'm only kidding. I'm just poking you because it's fun to do. But this reminds me, and I don't want to throw any new, authors in because we're talking about this dude, but that this is what, Michelle, I don't know if your mind went here too, but what the hell is it? The Strangest Secret, right? I mean, this is not new stuff. This is, I think I just did Wikipedia or whatever. It's 1956. Earl Nightingale came out with The Strangest Secret. You guys can YouTube it. It's, The Strangest Secret is actually not really that big of a secret. And it's amazing. Yeah, this stuff has been around. I mean, success leaves clues. Successful people do certain things and don't do certain things. That's always been true, and these guys sort of just, they researched or interviewed lots of successful people, came together. I did not know that all those little booklets made this book. That's a pretty cool fact that we learned tonight. Thanks, Carol. 600 and something pages later, that's what we learned. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the things he says are true, and that stuff that Erin was saying on the wake-up call that we listened to today, I don't know. Some people don't understand the correlation between personal development and learning about yourself and being able to strengthen the weaknesses about yourself when you go about doing something that you've never done before and you come up against challenges and obstacles that you've never faced before. It's important to have a strong, like a good structure, a good framework to handle those kinds of challenges in life and anything. But today, Erin was saying she didn't even know about personal development. I mean, this is somebody who's been new to online marketing in the last year and a half. She never knew that people did visualization. She never knew that existed. So I think for her, it was very simple to just step into that and do it because she didn't have any kind of preconceived notion about what it should be or what it could be or what it means. She just said, wow, this is pretty cool. And she did it. And if we all could do it that easily, then I mean, she's pretty successful at what she did. Michelle's laughing, right? Because it's kind of like you have this junk that comes along with, personal development, self-help, those people in the new age section or whatever. What's the word? Kelly likes woo. Kelly, is that what you like? Yeah. I never heard that before, like the last couple months. I never heard people say that woo stuff because it was just actually normal default reading for me. Normal exercise that I would go through. I don't know. I've been doing it for so long. But yeah, I really do find that business, personal development, it's so important to strengthen your mindset. Like I always say, almost more than your skill set. Almost more. Because I think that people with way less skills than me go way further because they don't have those same blockages and those same walls they hit. They don't have those because they just don't even think about it. They think, I can do this. Oh, look at her. She's doing it. I can do it too. I'm off and running. They don't think about it. Me, I'm thinking about everything. I'm overthinking it. So anyway, thanks, Carol. Next week, we're going to argue how you can change your DNA in a 20-minute meditation with Ellie. That's what we're doing next week. I didn't want to get into that, but I will.
Yeah, that's a great point that you brought up just at the very end there too, about how some people just think about, oh well, he or she can do it, so I can do it too. I was just thinking, my God, I've been on so many dying calls and what have you lately. This afternoon, I was listening to a hangout where somebody was talking about this type thing, and he was saying that the so-called 2% that is so successful in this line would think that way, whereas the 98%, start thinking about, oh well, just because he or she can do it doesn't mean I can. I don't know if I can. People have told me I can't. That's like you said. You start thinking of sometimes differently until you exercise those self development muscles and start thinking differently. So thank you. Yeah. Anybody else?
Sure. Well, that book is 100 years older than I go, but I can listen to it, and I'll have to look for that audio, because reading something, I sat down to read in the car, and 2 pages later, I was asleep. So reading is just not something, if I'm not entertained. But, as you were going through all that stuff, when I started in business, I refused to believe that personal development had anything to do with business. I always believed that the people who were shopping in the self-development section, or personal development, self-help, were crazy or extremely unhappy. That's what I always thought. And when you read all that stuff off, it's like, oh, that's where that came from. And and it's great to know that it all came from millionaires, because those are the ones we want to emulate. And it's extremely important in business to have a strong personal development or a strong mindset, because we all come across doubts. We have little failures here and there. Everybody, every single one, even Napoleon Hill, everyone. And we need to have that what's the word, that little voice inside saying, no, hold on a second, now you know better than this, it's only a small bump in the road, or that you only get through mindset and personal development. Because if you don't go through any of trying to improve your self-image, your self-worth, your worthiness of being successful, then the first bump or the second, you're going to quit. You'll just quit. And so that's my big takeaway. I haven't read the book. I'm definitely going to listen to it now, and especially if it's 600 pages. But thank you so much, Carol. This is a really good topic. And like I said, I've only been in personal development in business for a year, and it's so definitely necessary.
Oh, well, thank you for your input here. And I think that's a tremendous point, and I'm so glad that we hear it so much today. And he was even talking about it then, that our setbacks are not necessarily failures. They're temporary. He calls them temporary defeats. I see them as road bumps, temporary setbacks, but temporary being the big thing here, and opportunities at the same time. Opportunities. So, thank you. Kelly, I think you hit your button before, did you?
I did. I want to write down a quick note, but while I'm thinking about it, I really appreciate the way that you broke out the 16 different points of, strategy towards this. towards success, because I think that there's a really important piece that can be missed in our culture of like consumer spirituality or consumer success, you know, that I can just buy the book and I can just do the 20-minute meditation and then poof, it's going to happen, you know. And this is really this is a practice, this is a change, this is a lifestyle. This doesn't happen you know, I don't know, you know, perhaps there are people that it happens for overnight and their journey is not my journey, you know, so I can't speak to it. So I think that it's really important to not get hung up in that, well, everybody says if I just do this, then I'm going to be successful. And I'm doing this and I'm not successful, because it's an ongoing process of self-development that, for me, you know, there's this idea that you have to have a defined goal at the end. And I don't always believe that that means you're going to get that specific goal. I think it just sort of drives you in a direction that brings in things, in my, you know, experience, that are often way bigger than I can ever even imagine, or way better than I can ever imagine. And so that can be hard, I think, to receive, or hard to have acceptance of, and still believe that I'm successful, you know, that the journey takes its own path sometimes, and that my job is to stay centered on it and be open to the transformation, and open to be mindful about what is happening internally for me. And primarily, like, where am I getting resistance in myself? Like, I was writing down, you know, the steps as you were going through them, and I was like, oh wow, like I could immediately tell where I was feeling resistant to action. And it's not, it's, you know, it's, yeah, just action. So, you know, that place of being able to identify where the action in my life I am resistant to taking, and how that makes, let's say, an energy vibration that affects sort of my wider world and wider experience. So I think, all of that being said, my point is, like, while I sit in my pot of resistance and stew in it, right, I think it's important for all of us to acknowledge that happens for everybody. We have to see our space of difficulties in order to grow beyond them. That this is a process of learning and growing and changing and being successful. It's not like a magic pill or a magic wand that you can take. You know, I think that there have been times in my life where I have gone to the self-help section or the crystal shop or the whatever, looking for the magic wand. And, you know, it's when I finally realized that that's, you know, that I'm the magic wand, and that my practice, you know, and my daily practice is the thing that's going to make a difference, is when I kind of get back on track. Although it's not always the thing I want, you know, I want something to just be better, or just to be what I want it to be. And so, spoken, you know, from the place of difficulty and resistance, I think that success and the laws of success and the laws of vibration and working with personal development and ourselves, I think it's really important to remember that it isn't always about buying or just doing the right thing to get what you want. That this is a really big journey of self-practice, self-awareness, and you don't just wake up typically and you're a genius. The truth is, you went into it as a genius, and that's what everybody is saying. So you are already, like, I am already a genius. and the resistance to whatever I'm experiencing is really the problem, you know. So that all being said, I'm going to take a look at that resistance to taking action in places that I don't want to. So thanks for this. Thanks for everyone bringing their hearts present together. Yeah.
Let me relate to a couple of things that you said there. First of all, yes, I think it's a very good point that you made that what we do is always layered. It's not that simple. It's not necessarily black and white. There's a lot of gray in between. And yes, being open to the journey, we might end up going in a direction that we never thought we would. And according to my beliefs, that's sometimes where the universe takes us, someplace that might be even better. We don't know yet. We don't even recognize it sometimes because it's not exactly what we were looking for. But I loved what you said there, that I am the magic wand. Yes, so true. And old Napoleon there, talking in terms of the vision again, he gives a pretty direct plan or course of action. He doesn't guarantee that you're going to get there to exactly where you want to be, but he says, again, it's knowledge, right thinking, sifting through the facts and the non-facts and the important ones and the unimportant ones, and putting them together into a plan, and then taking the action based on that. And that's his thought. So, all right. I think
we're not done.
Oh, okay.
So, oh, sorry. Of course, it's layered because we're layered.
Right.
The truth is, as you start, I don't know, look, I'm going to really age myself. So when we were kids, we used to go to the golf course and get the golf balls, okay? And I don't know what they're made of now, but if you used to scratch them along the cement, along the curb, you go all the way around because underneath there was rubber bands. All right. And if you opened it all the way around like that and then hit the rubber bands, it would explode. The rubber bands would explode. And in the middle of it was a Super Bowl. So we would actually sit and do this. So what I'm thinking of is that layer. So we hit the first layer the hard layer. Okay, we had to hit the hard layer, and then we hit that first layer of rubber bands, and then it took off. And in actuality, so does this, because it's all integrated. So some people get like, oh my God, I'm this old and I have all this crap and it'll take me a lifetime. Well, the lifetime is the journey, okay? But you will find that you will change in ways that you were not even so-called working on, because it's layered and they're integrated. And how it put itself together in your brain, and again, it's all mindset maps, okay? It was integrated. And so this starts to break them apart. You hit one thing and a whole bunch of other stuff starts to break apart, to the point that, so a lot of times when people start personal development, okay, and they really like delve into it, they say, what is going on? It's like the shit is hitting the fan. Okay, and it is, because all these beliefs, you are challenging them now. Okay, and your brain is like on tilt mode. It just is. So that layered aspect is actually good. It's actually beneficial, because as you get in there, like with the rubber bands. And then the other thing I was hearing when you were talking about, Kelly was talking about, that this is a journey and it's a practice. Well, the bottom line is you're on a journey and you're on a practice now anyways. Why don't you get on one that benefits you? See, that's what people don't understand. You're on the journey anyways, and you have a practice. You don't know you do, but you're doing the same stuff all the time, all the time, all the time. Reliving all the same stuff, all the same stuff, all the same stuff. Okay, so it is a journey. You're on it anyways, all right? You've got a practice going on. If you want to see expansion and differences and better things in your life, you've got to change the practice. It's not like, oh my God, now I have to get a practice. No, you've got one already. Maybe it's time you ought to pick the one you want. So that's what I got to say.
Wow, I guess we could go on for a while with this topic, as well as most of the others. I guess all of the others that we ever start. All right, well, I'm going to begin to close this out unless anybody else has anything they want to jump in with. All right. Any of the guests, visitors who have come to join us tonight, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to put them in the chat. We will check it during the week and respond, certainly. And please come back and see us again next week. Every Tuesday, 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, we are here with different topics and different ones of us present. Also, if there's anything here that you had questions about or that was of interest to you, by all means get back to the person who invited you here and talk to them about it. And you know, if you're interested, we'd love to see you join us. So that said, I guess we will close it out. Thank you, everyone. Good night, and we'll see you next week. Mwah.